I was 22 when my mother remarried, bringing Thomas into our lives. Thomas was a calm and collected man with a warm presence that instantly made our home feel more welcoming. With his neatly trimmed beard and kind eyes, he quickly became a pillar of support for both my mother and me. My mother, a doctor, often had to work late hours or travel for conferences, leaving Thomas and me to handle things at home. At first it was a bit awkward having him around, but Thomas made every effort to make me feel comfortable. He would cook dinner, even if it was just simple pasta or grilled cheese, and we would sit together talking about our day. His stories about his own life experiences were always fascinating, and I found myself looking forward to those evenings more than I expected. As time went on, Thomas became more than just my stepfather. He was someone I could rely on, someone who genuinely cared about my well-being. He was attentive to my needs, always noticing if I was stressed about school or if something was bothering me. He had a knack for knowing when to offer advice and when to just listen, and I appreciated that more than I could express. One evening, while my mother was away at a medical conference, Thomas suggested we have a special dinner. He wanted to try a new recipe he had found online, something more ambitious than our usual meals. As we cooked together, the kitchen filled with the delicious aroma of roasted chicken and fresh herbs. We laughed as we navigated the recipe, making a mess but enjoying every moment. The meal turned out surprisingly well, and as we sat down to eat, I felt a sense of contentment wash over me. After dinner, we moved to the living room to watch a movie. Wrapped in a cozy blanket, we settled on a classic film we both loved. Throughout the movie, I noticed how easy it was to be around Thomas, how natural our companionship felt. There was a warmth between us that went beyond the usual stepfather-stepdaughter relationship. As the weeks passed, our bond grew stronger. We shared more about our lives, our dreams, and our fears. Thomas opened up about his past, his hopes for the future, and I found myself doing the same. It was comforting to have someone to confide in, someone who understood me in a way that few others did. One particularly rainy night, I came home feeling overwhelmed by a tough day at work. Thomas was already there, a cup of hot tea waiting for me. He could see the stress etched on my face and immediately offered to listen. We sat on the couch, the sound of rain pattering against the windows, and I poured out my frustrations. Thomas listened patiently, offering words of encouragement and understanding. His calm demeanour helped me feel more at ease, and I was grateful for his unwavering support. That night, something shifted between us. There was a newfound closeness, a deeper connection that neither of us could ignore. It was as if the barriers that had kept us at a comfortable distance had dissolved, leaving us more aware of the bond we shared. As we continued to spend time together, this connection only grew stronger. We found ourselves gravitating towards each other, seeking out moments to share and enjoy. The lines between family and friendship blurred, and I began to see Thomas in a different light. One evening, after a long day, we sat on the porch watching the sunset. The sky was painted with hues of orange and pink, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves around us. We talked about everything and nothing, our conversation flowing effortlessly. At one point, Thomas reached out and gently took my hand. The touch was innocent, yet it sent a jolt of electricity through me. I looked at him, and in his eyes, I saw a reflection of the feelings I had been trying to ignore. It was a mix of care, concern, and something deeper, something neither of us had been willing to acknowledge until that moment. From that evening on, our relationship changed. We became more aware of each other, more attuned to the subtle shifts in our interactions. There was a tension, a charged energy that seemed to build with each passing day. We tried to keep things normal, to maintain the status quo, but it was becoming increasingly difficult. One night, while my mother was away on a weekend trip, Thomas and I decided to watch a new series we had both been eager to see. As the episodes played, we found ourselves sitting closer, our shoulders touching. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken words and unacknowledged feelings. During a particularly emotional scene, I glanced at Thomas and saw a tear roll down his cheek. Without thinking, I reached out and wiped it away. Our eyes met, and in that moment, everything changed. The barriers we had carefully constructed came crashing down. We both knew we had crossed a line, but neither of us could bring ourselves to stop. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions. We tried to talk about what had happened, but words seemed inadequate. There was a mix of guilt, confusion, and undeniable attraction that neither of us knew how to handle. We decided to take some time apart, hoping to gain clarity and perspective. But the distance only made our feelings more intense. We couldn't stay away from each other, and soon we found ourselves drawn back together, unable to resist the pull. My mother remained unaware of the growing tension between us, her busy schedule keeping her occupied. But I knew it was only a matter of time before she noticed. The secret we were keeping was becoming too heavy to bear, and I was torn between my loyalty to her and my feelings for Thomas. One evening, as the sun set and the house was bathed in a soft golden light, Thomas and I sat down to talk. We knew we couldn't keep going like this, that we had to make a decision. The conversation was long and difficult, filled with tears and heartache. We both knew what we had to do, but it didn't make it any easier. We agreed that Thomas would move out for a while, giving us both space to process our emotions and figure out the next steps. The goodbye was painful, but necessary. As he left, I felt a profound sense of loss, but also a glimmer of hope. The following weeks were some of the hardest of my life. The house felt emptier without Thomas, and I missed our conversations, our shared moments. But I knew that this time apart was essential for both of us. I threw myself into work, trying to distract myself from the aching void his absence had left. During this time, I also reconnected with friends, seeking their support and understanding. They helped me see things from different perspectives, offering advice and comfort. Slowly, I began to find my footing again. Thomas and I kept in touch, our conversations tentative at first, but gradually growing more open and honest. We talked about our feelings, our regrets, and our hopes for the future. It was a painful process, but it was also healing. Through our conversations, we both realized that our bond was too strong to simply walk away from. We decided to seek counseling, both individually and together, to navigate the complex emotions we were experiencing. The therapy sessions were challenging, forcing us to confront our fears and vulnerabilities, but they also brought clarity and understanding. As we worked through our issues, we began to see a path forward. We knew it wouldn't be easy, that we would face judgment and difficult conversations, but we also knew that our relationship, whatever form it took, was worth fighting for. One afternoon, several months later, Thomas and I sat on a park bench, the autumn leaves swirling around us. We had come a long way since that first night on the porch, and our connection had only deepened. We talked about the future, about the possibilities and challenges that lay ahead, and for the first time, we felt a sense of peace. We had faced our fears, our mistakes, and our doubts, and we had come out stronger on the other side. As we sat there watching the world go by, I knew that no matter what happened, we would face it together. Our journey was far from over, but we were ready for whatever came next. Our journey was far from over, but we were ready for whatever came next. Over the following months, Thomas and I worked diligently to rebuild our lives. We focused on healing, individually and together, ensuring that our relationship was based on mutual respect and understanding. My mother eventually noticed the changes in our dynamic, and we decided to have an open and honest conversation with her. It was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, but I knew it was necessary. We sat down together one evening, and with Thomas by my side, I explained everything to her. She listened in silence, her expression a mixture of shock, hurt, and confusion. When we finished, there was a long, heavy silence. Then, with a trembling voice, she asked us how we planned to move forward. We explained our decision to seek counseling and our commitment to being honest and transparent. My mother took some time to process everything. There were moments of anger, tears, and difficult conversations, but eventually she came to see that our intentions were genuine, that we were committed to making things right. Her acceptance and willingness to support us despite the pain we had caused was a testament to her strength and love. Thomas and I continued our counselling sessions, and slowly but surely, our relationship began to take on a new form. It wasn't easy, and there were many moments of doubt and fear, But through it all, we remained committed to each other and to the process of healing. We learned to communicate openly, to respect each other's boundaries, and to build a foundation of trust and love. As time went on, our bond grew stronger, not despite our challenges, but because of them. We found a new sense of purpose and clarity in our relationship. We also worked to rebuild our family dynamic with my mother, creating new traditions and finding ways to support each other. One evening, as we all sat together around the dinner table, I felt a sense of peace and gratitude wash over me. We had come a long way, and while there were still challenges ahead, I knew we would face them together. Thomas and I continued to grow as individuals and as a couple. We pursued our passions, supported each other's dreams, and created a life filled with love, laughter, and mutual respect. We also took time to reflect on the lessons we had learned, ensuring that we never took our relationship or our family for granted. As the years went by, our bond only deepened. We celebrated each other's successes, supported each other through hardships, and always found a way to come back to the love that had brought us together. Our journey was far from perfect, but it was ours, and it was beautiful in its own way. Looking back, I realized that the challenges we faced had only made us stronger. We had built a relationship based on honesty, trust, and unwavering support. And in the end, that was all that mattered. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, I turned to Thomas and smiled. "We've come a long way," I said softly. He nodded, his eyes filled with warmth and love. "Yes, we have," he replied, "and I wouldn't change a thing." As we sat there hand in hand, I knew that no matter what the future held, we would face it together. Our journey had been filled with ups and downs, but it had brought us to a place of deep connection and understanding. And for that, I was eternally grateful.